A week had gone by, and I was completely healed. I began working for the doctor, whose name I found out to be Ast. For the most part, I was just working in the reception area, checking in on ponies as they came in, recording their problems, and then charging them for the cost of their treatment. At first, things were pretty slow. Our town didn't really have a record of illness or injury. However, as the days went by, things got a bit busier. Nothing too extreme, though. Dr. Ast says things were probably just a sickness going around, and would pass soon enough. He was correct, and the number of patients we had went back down to a more manageable number. After a few days of working reception only, Dr. Ast came over to me and says, "Well, how would you like to watch me work?" I immediately respond with, "Of course." He gives me a smile and says, "Very good. Well, let's meet our next patients, shall we?" He motions with a hoof, and we go into the room he uses for examinations. Inside the room is a classmate of mine, Checkers. Dr. Ast addresses him. "Hello, Checkers. Right?" he asks. Checkers nods. "Would you mind if Veld here watches me work? He must learn the trade, after all," Dr. Arts says. Checkers looks at me before telling the doctor, "Sure, I don't mind." Dr. Arts begins his examination, starting by asking Checkers about his symptoms, how long he's had the problem, how he feels, and the usual kind of thing. Checkers replies with just a cough, about a week, and mostly okay, but sometimes it gets excessive. Dr. Arts nods to Checkers as he talks, and takes notes on a piece of paper. Once Checkers is done, Dr. Arts pulls out a stethoscope and puts it against Checkers' chest and tells him to breathe. Checkers breathes a few times, and the doctor takes the stethoscope away, jotting down some more notes. He then turns to me. "You see, Veld, first you need to ask the symptoms and how the patient is. Get all the information they know, and then you are able to more adequately assist them. Now, Checkers here says that they are having a persistent cough. As such, his lungs must be the problem. Thus, I listen to his breathing with the stethoscope. Here, have a listen." He gives the stethoscope to me and allows me to listen as Checkers breathes. He does so a few times, and I hear a raspy noise. "You hear the sounds?" Dr. Arts asks. I nod my head. "That is the sound of the minor fluid in the lungs." Checkers gives a worried look, which Dr. Arts immediately dispels by saying, "Nothing to worry about. It is very common and easily treatable." Checkers breathes a sigh of relief. "Now then, I can give you some medicine, and it will boost the effect with my magic. You should be feeling better in a few days, assuming you take the medicine regularly." Dr. Arts tells him as he begins channeling some magic and touches his horn to Checkers' chest. "There, you should be good to go now." The doctor walks over to the cabinet and gets some medicine for Checkers before giving it to him. "Now, if the problem does not go away after a few days, come again," he tells Checker. "Thanks, doctor," Checkers says, and he gets up and leaves the examination room. "Well?" Dr. Arts asks me. "What do you think?" I think for a moment before I answer. "I still have a lot to learn." He gives a chuckle and says, "Yes, most of the knowledge is gained through experience. You will learn quickly, though. Now then, shall we call on our next patient?" I nod, and he calls the next patient in. Over the course of the day, we spend our time looking at patients. The doctor examines them first, going through the same procedure as usual. After checking over their symptoms himself, the doctor allows me to examine them, so I know what's going on for the particular issue the patient is having. Most of the ponies coming to us have the same illnesses: coughing, runny noses, and that sort of thing. Nothing too complicated. It was in this fashion that we passed the next few weeks. When I wasn't at school, or working with the doctor, I was spending it with the Society of Slumber. Not much changed from our usual routines. With no clear plan, we just sat in our hideout and messed around. The others had gotten jobs as well, so there was often times that someone was missing from the group. Aurora was working for a baker, Hem was working for a carpenter, and Lucky was working for a banker. Despite our jobs, we were still focusing on our goal of finding the truth behind the town. At first, Aurora was the most against the plan to settle down and get jobs. However, she soon grew fond of her job in the bakery, and eventually got her cutie mark, which was a loaf of bread broken in half. Hem and Lucky also got their marks. Hem has 2 pieces of wood, while Lucky has a few bits as his. However, I've yet to get mine, which made sense since I felt my true calling lies with history, not healing. Once I come of age and get the money to leave this town, I plan to, in search of somewhere I can truly study history to its fullest. But for now, we're all just sitting around in the hideout. So, anything new? Aurora asks. We all shake our heads. Nothing? No leads of any sort? She asks again. No, Aurora. Just like every day you ask us. Nothing new, Lucky says. Why do we even meet then? Aurora shouts. Because spending time together is what friends do. Right? Hem says. Aurora puffs out her cheeks as she says, I guess, but it just feels like we should actually be doing something. I nod. I know the feeling, but we can't do anything if we don't know about anything, I tell her. While I do plan to leave this town someday, I also want to attempt to uncover the truth about it. However, those in positions of power in the town aren't likely to look at us with good intentions. It will take some time to gain their trust again and start uncovering what actually happened here. So, it'll be a slow and arduous process, but we can do it. I know we can. Well, it's about time for me to head out, Lucky says. Duty calls, and all that. He gets up from the table and heads to the door. Have a good day at work, Hem tells him. We all wave as he steps outside and heads to his job at the bank. I should probably get going as well, I tell Hem and Aurora. They both nod, and Aurora says, Catch you later. Find something out for us to do, will ya? I laugh slightly and reply with, I'll see what I can do, as I step out the door. Back in the doctor's office, I'm greeted with an overwhelming swarm of patients. Dr. Arts slowly notices me and motions me over to him and says, Veld, good. As you can see, we are very, very busy. A little too busy, if you ask me. What I need you to do is the secondary examination room and help the patients there alone. In the event you do not know what to do, just come and see me. We will have to give all of our patients today. We will get through this. Oh, and make sure that you take notes when you examine them. With that, he walks away and calls for another patient. I stand around for a few moments before I realize what just happened. The doctor gave me permission to examine and help patients on my own, without his supervision. I take a deep breath and call a patient into the secondary examination room. She comes in, and I begin the examination. She lists off her symptoms and discusses what she knows with me. I then examine her myself to see what the issue is. It appears as though she had some sort of allergic reaction on her leg, and it has broken out into a rash. Nothing too major. I gave her some medicine that would make the rash go away and send her off. I call in the next patient and examine them as well, and then the next, and the next. At first, I'm a little nervous working by myself, and it causes me to take a while with each examination. But as I work, I gain confidence in my abilities, and I begin to get things done faster and faster. However, there are still some things I don't know and have to go ask Dr. Arts a few times about. But for the most part, I handle myself pretty well, I think. The day goes by, and the patients slowly dwindle. We're about to close up for the night, when one last patient frantically walks through the door. He is coughing profusely, and seems to be unbalanced on his hooves. As he enters, he calls out, "Doctor, help!" before he falls over and scrambles to get up. The doctor runs out and looks at the buck for a second, before quickly saying, "Veld, bring him into the room." I move to help the buck into the examination room, while Dr. Arts heads there before us. As I enter the room with the patient, I see Dr. Arts preparing some things on the counter, and once I lay the patient down on the bed, the doctor comes over to him. "I need you to calm down and tell me about your symptoms," he says with a stern look. The patient coughs a bit before responding. "I can't stop coughing, and my body isn't responding properly." The doctor nods and asks further, "Do you have any pain anywhere?" The patient struggles to reply while coughing with, "Yes, in my chest and abdomen." The doctor remains silent for a moment before he calls to me. "Veld, provide some anesthetic. Put him to sleep." "Sir, you will be all right. You will just be out for a little bit." I do as the doctor instructs me and use my magic to put the patient to sleep with the anesthetic spell he taught me. "Good, good," the doctor says. "Now then." He moves over to the counter again. He takes a syringe from it and returns to the patient's side. "Veld, when I saw him earlier, I immediately figured out what was wrong. I've only seen this a few times. It is a rare illness. He will need to sleep, and this medicine I will inject into him. If left untreated, he will soon be unable to breathe and suffocate to death." After saying that, he looks at me curiously for a few moments, before asking, "Veld, would you like to do the honors? You haven't used a syringe yet, have you?" I looked at him for a moment, before nodding and taking the syringe from him. "Now, you must find the vein," he instructs me. "There you go. Now, put it inside of him." I place the point of the syringe on his skin and gently push it in. "Good, good. Now, inject the medicine into him." I push down on the syringe, and the medicine begins to flow into the patient. "Good. Now pull it out and give me the syringe." I take it out and give the syringe back to Dr. Arts. "You did well for your first time, Veld." He returns the empty syringe to the counter and turns towards me. "Veld, I will take it from here while he sleeps. You go home and get some rest. You did well today. Very well." The doctor compliments me. "Thanks, Dr. Arts. I did what I could. We had a lot of patients today," I say. He nods. "Yes, we did," he says. "Mostly kids my age, too," I tell him. "Well, the young do tend to get more illnesses, you know," he informs me. "True," I say as I head towards the door. "I'll see you tomorrow, doctor." With that, I leave the hospital and head home for the night. Since the doctor lives in the hospital, in his own private wing of it, he should be able to monitor the patient as he sleeps. And should the doctor grow weary himself, he could always turn into his own bed and still be within earshot of the patient, should something go wrong. The following morning, I wake up and prepare to go to school like usual. However, as I begin to groom myself, I notice something different. On my flank, I have a symbol that wasn't there before. It is a syringe with a black drop of liquid falling from it. Behind the syringe is a red biohazard symbol, contrasting my green coat. I look at it with mixed feelings. Part of me is happy to have gotten my cutie mark, but the part of me that isn't happy has to do with history. Doesn't this mean that my true destiny lies in medicine, not history? I ask myself. But why now, after working so long for the doctor? I wonder. It had been weeks, and I hadn't gotten my mark yet. Until today, that is. Could it have been because of helping the patient last night? Perhaps it wasn't my destiny to help healing random ailments, but instead sicknesses that were life-threatening? I continue to think of reasons that got me this cutie mark, and why I got it now of all times, while I head for school. Even at school, however, I can't shake it from my mind. My classmates notice it and congratulate me, saying that they knew I would do great things, and helping ponies with medical issues is among the greatest things anyone could do. But it just didn't sit well with me. My whole life, I had studied the history and the great tragedies. Nothing about medicine or healing. Yet, I get this cutie mark. As school drags on, I find that I can't pay attention to any of the lectures, and soon school comes to an end. I go immediately to work, hoping to take my mind off of things for a while. When I arrive, I am greeted with a wall of patients, almost double what we had yesterday. Dr. Arts quickly ushers me inside and tells me we will be doing the same thing as yesterday. I waste no time in beginning to examine patients, and it helps to take my mind off the issue of my cutie mark. As the day goes by, I help more and more patients, and soon the crowd dwindles. But there's quite a few still remaining. Since things have slowed down a bit, my mind begins to wander to other things. It doesn't go back to thinking about my cutie mark, but instead focuses on work-related things. While it wanders, I begin to recall my patients, a great number of which were all classmates of mine. When I realize this, I think back to school today. Even though I was barely paying attention, I remember that there were quite a few students missing today. There must be something going around, I think to myself, as I call for my next patient who enters the room. It's another classmate of mine. They greet me, and I greet them. I go through the normal routine of asking them questions and examining them. They don't have anything too serious, and I give them some medicine they require before sending them on their way. I call for the next patient, but no one enters. I decide to walk out into the waiting room. I see that the waiting room is empty, and that the sun is going down. We had worked straight through the day, and it was nearly time for us to close up. I decide to check on the doctor, and enter the primary examination room. As I enter, I see the doctor with a patient. The doctor looks up and greets me. "Ah, Veld, I take it this lovely mare is our last patient for today?" He smiles at the mare he is examining, and she smiles back at him. I nod as I say, "Yeah, it seems we worked straight throughout the day." He gave a worried look and says, "Yes, it would seem that there is something going around. We are getting very busy as of late." He continues to examine the mare for a few moments before he gets up and goes to the cabinet. He searches around in it for a moment, before he turns away and looks at me. "It would appear that I am out of aloe vera. Veld, would you mind getting some from my main supply?" "Ah, but wait, you haven't seen it before, have you? Well, go down all the way and enter my personal abode. Once inside, you will turn to the right and you will walk down another hall, and then there will be a door to your left. It will be in there." I nod and head out the door and into the hallway. A few minutes later, I arrive in Dr. Arts's personal home. I take a right and walk down the hall, like he said, and find a door on my left. I enter the room, which is filled with large containers of various medicines and herbs. I search for the one labeled aloe vera and grab some. I exit the room and turn to go back the way I came, but stop as I hear something. I perk my ears up and listen for a moment. I hear it again, some sort of low whine. I turn around and head past the door I just exited, going further down the hall. As I go further down, the sound gets louder. I'm soon able to make out a low whine as a groaning of sorts. I continue walking until I come to a door that the groaning appears to be coming from. I hesitate for a moment, but push open the door and the groaning gets louder. The room is pitch black, so I illuminate my horn. Upon doing so, I immediately drop the aloe I had been carrying in shock, and stumble backwards. I look around the room, my eyes widening and my mouth opening. A shiver goes down my spine as I take in the sight before me, and I begin to tremble. The room is filled with metal cages and chains, and inside of those cages are ponies, some of which I recognize, others I do not. However, each one I recognize as a classmate of mine, and as a whole, they all appear to be my age. They're all chained up inside of the cages. Some are asleep, others are moaning, and others still are staring blankly into the darkness. As I look closer, I notice that some are suffering from some illnesses that I know about, and some have gruesome-looking tumors covering their bodies. The floor, cages, and chains are all stained with blood in various spots. I take a hesitant step forward, walking deeper into the room. In total, I count around 30 cages, but only 27 are occupied. However, every cage appears to have been used at some point. My breath becomes heavier as I take in the grisly scene around me. What is this? I ask myself. Did the doctor do this? He couldn't have, but... As my mind races, my eyes fall upon a pony I recognize. It's the last patient we treated yesterday. I walk over to his cage and look at him. He's in better shape than the rest, but I can tell he's still suffering. He notices me and looks in my direction. For a moment, I see the life returning to his eyes, and as he opens his mouth to speak, but suddenly takes in a sharp breath and his eyes grow wide. He starts yelling frantically, "No! No, 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 no!" All the while trying to get as far back into the cage as he can, away from me. "Wait! I'm not here to hurt you!" I attempt to reassure him. "Let me help!" I feel a sharp pain in the back of my skull, and my body loses its strength as the world around me fades into darkness.